Good morning. Good morning. My name is Chris Lennon. I'm a member of the Music and Worship Committee here at First Parish Unitarian Church here in Plymouth. My pronouns are he, his, and him. Oh, that's later on. Welcome to our virtual service this morning. Today's service will be posted on our Facebook page as well as on YouTube. The recording will end before we begin our Candles of Joy and Sorrow. Our service today will be led by Linda Harding and Andy Loretz. Linda is the Director of Enrollment for the Woodward School for Girls, where her mission there is not only to pass an education, but also to awaken the gifts in young women. She's been a member here of First Parish for more than 20 years. She lives in Plymouth with her partner, Ann, and their dog, Charlie Brown, who is a mix of cartoon character and Cocker Spaniel. Andy Loretz is a music teacher here at Plymouth South Middle School. He's been working in Plymouth since 2012. He's a town meeting member for Precinct 3 and volunteering with Indivisible Plymouth, a local political action organization. Also, please welcome Michael Wade, who is going to be our musician for the next several weeks. Michael is a music teacher working for the Hanover Public Schools, where he teaches choir from grades 5 to 12, guitar, and music for special needs. Beyond Hanover, he is an active collaborative pianist, regularly accompanying various musicians, ensembles, instrumental and vocal soloists, and staged musical productions. He also sings with a Boston-based choral ensemble, a collection of professional singers and conductors concentrating around the greater Boston area. He received his BM in music education from Ithaca College, where his concentrations were piano and choral music education. And he received his Master of Music in Choral Conducting from Indiana University. We hope you will stay for a virtual coffee hour and conversations after the service. Whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. Please walk with us this hour.
Hi, good morning. My name is Andy Loretz. My pronouns are he, his, and him. And I will be giving our call to worship. So, Dorothy Day once said, "The greatest challenge of the day is how to bring about a revolution of the heart, a revolution which must start with each one of us." As we look out and see a world that seems to increasingly uplift bigotry, cruelty, and other forms of hate, our immediate reaction is to try to fix what is wrong with the world outside. Against the forces of hate, our hearts cry out in anger, pain, and frustration. And that although our intentions start out as good, we often find that our thoughts and actions eventually mirror the very hatred we wish to rid the world of. We are called to worship here today, not to bring about a revolution of each other's hearts or the hearts of the whole world, but rather to bring about a revolution of our own heart, to live in the deep mystery that is our own hearts, and to better recognize the love that we must cultivate within ourselves. We are called to worship here today to bend the long moral arc of history towards justice, but by fostering the love and mystery that resides within our own souls, hearts, and minds. And so we will be singing in a second with that theme in mind. Each one of us is somebody. Each one of us has a part to play in bending that arc, but it starts from within. As we begin to focus on the role of our internal relationship with our hearts, please join in singing along with hymn number 1007, "There is a River Flowing in My Soul."
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing in my mind.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be here with you this morning to share this service. And I invite you to join with me in reciting the words to our chalice lighting. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. It's a real gift and privilege to be sharing with you all today. On Thursday, March 12th, I left my office at 5 o'clock and started driving on my way to a networking event in Braintree. And all of a sudden, I felt all of the energy drain out of my body. And then I felt sick. Oh no, I said to myself, I hope I don't have corona. You do need to know I am a little bit of a hypochondriac. The next day, tiredness, GI distress, sore throat, headache, cough set in and didn't lighten up or go away after a week. And each day I became a little bit more anxious and a little bit more fearful. Too much uncertainty was running through my mind. Would I become sicker? How long would this last? How long would the whole coronavirus thing last? Would the economy crash? Will I lose my job? What is going on here? My partner, Anne, is the voice of reason in our home. And however, during that time, she was on vacation in Florida while I stayed home to work. I called Anne one night in a panic and I said, I think I have corona. And she quietly just asked me nurses type questions. Do you have a fever? I said, no. Do you have trouble breathing? I said, no. Well, she responded, you don't have corona. Call your doctor's office if you don't feel better in a couple of days. Last March seems such a long time ago, doesn't it? Well, after that first week of anxiety I had a little talk with myself. So, Linda, stop focusing on worst case scenarios. You know what to do to turn this around for yourself. Turn off the news, pray, meditate, look to a higher source, focus on what's good, focus on the light. So that's when I started to begin each day and end each day by using readings, meditation, prayer, listening to spiritual advisors on YouTube. And I got outside of myself, and as a good you, I started to ask myself questions. And these are some of the questions I engaged in. Why has the entire world come to a standstill? What is the universe trying to tell us? What does all of this mean for me? And what's the possibility that can come out of this crisis? So after dwelling in these questions for a few months, I'd like to share with you what's become apparent to me, and that is we are living in a mystical time. And that is to say, let's look at just one of these fundamental universal truths. And initially, this truth has always been kind of like in the background. I knew it was there. It's part of one of our UU principles. But now for me, it's in the forefront. And that is our world is a bioecological spiritual system. We are all connected. What is in one is in the whole. We all breathe the same breath. And yes, obviously our planet needs a break from pollution. It's an opportunity to get back into balance for the planet. But it's an opportunity for us also to get back into balance. Emily Melville shared a few weeks ago during her homily, there's an irony that during a pandemic that has people gasping for breath, protesters are out on the streets repeating the last words of George Floyd, "I can't breathe." The planet is off balance and out of sync. For many of us, our bodies are off balance and out of sync. Our society is off balance. And all of the above has been going on for quite a long time. And here's the good news and the bad news, is we are all responsible. Everything we say, everything we do reverberates through our universe. I wanted to share one of the books I've been reading. I don't know if you can see this. Oh, it's backwards because the mirror. The life and teaching of the masters of the Far East. And I was reading a section, and one of the wise ones in the dialogue demonstrates this. She says, let me drop this pebble into a bowl of water. You see that the vibrations caused by the pebble coming in contact with the water radiate from the center in ever widening circles until they reach the rim of the bowl. To the eye, it seems like they lose their force and stop. But what really happens is this: as soon as the vibrations reach the limits of the water, they start on their return journey back to the place where the pebble entered the water. And they do not hesitate until they reach that center. This exactly represents every thought or word we think or speak sets in motion certain vibrations that go out and on in ever widening circles until they encompass the universe. And then they return back to the one who sent them. Every thought, every word. Every thought we think, every word we speak, be it good or bad, returns to us as certainly as it was sent forth. So ends the quote. Carolyn Myss, the medical intuitive and mystic, says, all is one. It is the fundamental truth. And during this crisis, this truth has to be activated in every thought form that we have. If we can live that truth, that is the spiritual path. As we heal ourselves, we heal the planet. So I started this segment by sharing that during our stay-at-home order, I began it with a flu. By Easter, I was feeling much better. But during that time of isolation, I was reminded that healing goes beyond just feeling well. Deep healing happens within the level of our souls. Where I focus my attention matters. Every word I speak matters. And you've likely have had your own revelations during this time. My work colleague, Carol Andrews, her background is an attorney, and usually she's a very sensible, logical person. And we were chatting the other day, and I was surprised to hear her say, you know, Linda, our society has the possibility of experiencing a renaissance as a result of COVID. From this early spring to midsummer now, each of us have had ideas held before our mind. And those ideas have been germinating and growing. Dare we think that a transformation of a kinder, fairer society will come out of this crisis? Dare we think that? For those of us on the spiritual path, there are universal laws, very powerful universal laws that can embrace change. We can't rely on politics and governments in order to make an epic change like this, because politics is a corrupt business. So how do we make change happen? Wow, how do we make change happen? So we have spiritual gifts, hope, faith, and love to rely on. And years ago, I had this theological argument with one of our ministers about the distinction hope. And I was hearing the word hope as a passive word, as in the sentence, I hope that it doesn't rain. So he was trying to point out that it's a spiritual gift. And now I see that distinction of hope as an active process, creating a new possibility, an idea held before the mind, a vision that's held there that can be manifested through faith. It brings to mind two Bible verses for me. One is Romans 8:24. For hope that is seen is not hope. And Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. I hear us talk about, I can't wait to get back to normal. Well, my friends, there is no going back. This is our time to move forward. Complacency is our enemy. I believe that complacency is our enemy at this point. It's the elevation of light that we will see, that we bring to each day, will be reflected on how we treat each other. And I'm not just talking about Black Lives Matter, rich or poor, Americans versus Chinese, Republicans and Democrats. Wouldn't that just be a shift in the planet if we all could just listen and respect each other from political parties? The only way forward is to stop fearing each other. The only way out of this crisis is to start trusting one another. And as Carolyn Miss, the mystic, will tell us, we can't do it without grace. It's time to download some badass grace. I wanted to also, I'm so blessed to be leading this service with Andy. I've gotten a chance to know him a little bit better, and he chose the next hymn, which is Wade in the Water, and I wanted to share why he chose it. As enslaved people sought freedom, they often sang spirituals with coded meanings. One such song tells listeners to wade in the water because God is going to trouble the water. On the surface, this sounds like an allusion to baptism, but enslaved people knew that the real meaning behind those words. Harriet Tubman used this song to instruct escaping enslaved people to get off the trail and into the water to make sure the dogs employed by slavers lost their scent. We sing this song today to reflect on the figurative water we each must jump into in order to break free from both internal and external sources of hate, bigotry, and systems of oppression. Here's Michael Wade.
water. See that band all dressed in white. God's gonna trouble the water. The leader looks like an Israelite. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See that band all dressed in red. God's gonna trouble the water. It looks like the band that Moses led. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Reverend Art asked me to share the remarks I gave at the Vigil for Black Lives held here in Plymouth in Brewster Gardens on June 3rd. I was invited to speak by the organizers and leaders of a local political action group called Indivisible Plymouth. This vigil was held in reaction to the recent killings of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and countless other Black, Brown, Indigenous, and people of color whose names go unknown. It was also held to show that Plymouth is a community, or is at least working to be a community, that believes that Black Lives Matter and stands for that. I will start by reiterating those same remarks that I gave about a month and a half ago, or 2 months now. I do not feel qualified to speak today. I'm just a white kid who grew up in the suburbs of Long Island, New York. In fact, it was that seemingly cozy upbringing that I feel most uncomfortable about today. I unfortunately have a very racist past myself. I grew up being very racist, and racism was positively reinforced throughout my formative years. Unfortunately, using the N-word was perversely used as a term of endearment by my family, just to give you insight into how racist we are, and they still are. I have done and said many racist things that I look back on now and absolutely abhor and regret. And my dear friend, Kat Cramp, asked me a question recently. She asked, "What was your first encounter with race?" And so I remember that in second grade, my teacher taught a unit on prejudice, diversity, and civil rights. And while it was very instructive, it was also only a couple of talks and a VHS video about these topics. And it was all crammed into February for Black History Month, rather than an ongoing conversation. We learned about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King and very tame versions of those stories. And we learned that to judge someone based on the color of their skin was prejudice and unfair to do to people. I remember arriving home and sharing some of this information with my family. The response, more or less, was, "And so the indoctrination begins." So apparently it's indoctrination to teach a young white kid to respect people who look different from themselves, according to my family. These small forms of acceptable racism are part of me. And I say acceptable in quotes because they're not. And unfortunately, racism rears its ugly head far too often in Plymouth. And all you need to do is look at some of our local townie pages on social media to see just how deep the racism in our town goes. After I came out in my freshman year of college and started learning about LGBTQ+ history, such as the Stonewall riots, I began to see my struggle in the struggle of others. I started to see the overt and also the, quote, polite forms of prejudice that people, including family members, but also community members and our federal government, wielded against me for being gay. I began the journey towards realizing that if I, as a gay white man, was feeling this marginalized, how must Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color feel? Slowly and over time, I came to think and reflect more about my relationship with race. I'm far from being a perfect ally to Black people and people of color, and I personally have a long way to go towards being a better anti-racist ally and just being a better person in general. But I believe that this is the work we all need to start doing to show that Black lives really do matter to us here in Plymouth. So those were my original remarks that afternoon at the vigil for Black Lives on June 3rd. However, I reiterate those remarks today, not in a political context necessarily, even though they are political, but in a spiritual one. As we use today's service to reflect on starting a revolution of our hearts and delving into the mystery of the interconnectedness of our hearts, like Linda was saying, I shared those remarks to illustrate the beginnings of my journey. I share my journey to show that even the hearts and minds of those who do, say, and believe horribly bigoted and racist things can begin to change. And we are not responsible for the change in others' hearts, but we can give people education, space, and we can try our very best to find as much love as, even if it's a little bit, as much love as we can muster. And so I use my story to help start you to reflect on your own heart. So I throw these questions to you all, since I grapple with these questions myself still. What can I do to cultivate love, even for those my heart wants to hate? How can I revolutionize my heart towards love, even in the face of bigotry, racism, and prejudice? Why must I love the hateful people in the world? Why must I love the hateful people in the world? And I encourage you to ask these questions for yourself and in your own time as you meditate with them. I'm going off script here, but as I was writing this, I was kind of like, why am I saying that I should love a murderer, someone who killed George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery? Why should I love these people? I don't have the answer, and it's hard for me to even say that and not feel like that in itself feels problematic. And yet, I think that's what the work we need to start doing as individuals to revolutionize our hearts. So if we truly want to start a revolution of love, as Dorothy Day spoke about, and as we open today with our call to worship, we must start that revolution within ourselves. Asking these questions will never be easy, but it is important. This is not to say that we should allow the forces of hate, bigotry, and prejudice to have free reign. They definitely should not go unchecked. Instead, it's a reminder to myself, as much as everyone listening, to focus on cultivating the little bits of love we can find in our heart. We will not stamp out hate by holding hate within. Let's instead focus our energy on love. And I leave you with one final question. What will you do to create a revolution in your own heart? And so Linda and I, as she said, worked together a little bit on putting together today's service for you. And so she chose the hymn that we're gonna sing next. It's called Love Will Guide Us. And Linda chose this hymn because the words encompass the message of this morning's service of revolutionizing love and the deep mystery that is that process of having a revolution of the heart. And also, she wanted to end on a little bit more of an upbeat moment. And just a word about how we're gonna sing this, even though there will be 4 verses that you see on the screen. Instead of singing all 4 verses, this is how we are going to sing it. This is our form for today. So we're only singing verse 1, then verse 2, and then verse 1 again. So not verses 3 or 4 that you might see on the screen.
will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from greed to giving, love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us. Hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from greed to giving, love will guide us through the hard night.
And I leave us, or I give you this benediction. The words are from Representative John Lewis, and these words were printed on the day of his funeral. Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring. When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. And so I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters. Let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide. Blessed be. Amen.